Hi, Misha here, and last time we looked at some surplus guns. It was a fresh batch of Polish Circle 11, today what we know as FP Radom, P64, chambered for 9x18 PM 9mm Makarov, also known as J-Ro's favorite gun. I think they're cool. And in the past, we've checked out another Polish classic, the Wz.33 or P35, often just called the Radom pistol, chambered for 9x19 Parabellum Luger. But today, you know this, you saw the title, we're going to talk about Polish production, Circle 11, the Radom factory, of the TT33 Tokarev. This is my old one you've seen in several videos, and this is a fresh import. So yeah, we're going to talk about the history and take them to the range, and there are two surprises that occurred at the range in this video, so we'll do that. And as always, if you could, please do like, share, subscribe. You know the boring routine, but it's helpful. And check out the link to Patreon. And with no further ado, let's get to something more interesting to both of us. So, beginning at the beginning, obviously Poland, as we know it, wasn't really a nation until after World War I. Okay, that came out wrong. You know what I mean, internet. But the modern nation. And their firearms production got going based on German tooling and whatnot, war reparations. My point is, this pistol was an excellent gun for such a young nation and young design factory. It's, you know, not extraordinary, but it's 9x19. Of course, it's single stack, pretty standard, based on a Browning system. Single action only. Grip safety. We have a decocker. This is a triple control. And it was such a good gun that it was kept into production after 1939, after the Nazi and, frankly, Soviet occupation. It was a good, solid gun, but they did not make any of these after 1945. So on its surface, the switch to a Tokarev kind of seems like a downgrade, and perhaps it was. Yeah, 9x19, which would, you know, become 9mm NATO, good, solid, well-built gun. The Tokarev, it's actually based more off Browning's earlier 1903 design, though with the locking system more like a 1911. Of course, this fires 7.62-25. Bottlenecked little round, powerful little round. But of course, 1945-46, Poland was communist, even if it didn't want to be. So their old way of life, kind of like under the Borg, was over, and they no longer made these. We've done videos in the past on the Wz.33. We'll do them in the future, but I just wanted to bring it out because I really like the story behind it and Polish resistance against the fascists during the war. It's cool times, but we're going to put it up so we can really focus on Tokarevs, or as it was known there, the WZ, Visa B Czech, the WZ 1933. Again, this is my earlier import. I've actually had it for quite a long while. And this is the recent import. And single action only. Browning style release, single stack, 8-round mag. And originally, no safety, but, you know, import regs. But before we get into production and a bit of history, let's put the first rounds through this gun, see how it does. Tokarev. Okay, that was a thing.
That was hopping around.
Well, what threw me off, when I pulled the trigger, the magazine floor plate moved, and I thought the mag was falling out. So I was like, what? I was being distracted by this feeling at the bottom of the grip. It's fine, it's secure, it's just a loose floor plate. So I was like, what in the... And also, since those are hollow points, I was kind of not expecting them to run, but they actually did. So yeah, I apologize for that. This moving kind of just threw me off. Plus, I really wasn't expecting it to run hollow points. Our experience in the past with other Tokarevs has not been great. This is a 1952 date. This earlier one is a 53. Those tend to be the peak year of production. But they started off in 1946 with kind of a test run, typical Soviet style, and probably using Russian parts, certainly under Russian supervision. And the low rate production continued through 1947. 1948, it was officially given the go-ahead for full rate production with more and more parts made in Poland. Again, very standard Soviet. And by 1950, we start to see pretty much peak production. Now, the early guns would be marked a little differently. The Circle 11 symbol we know and love for Factory 11 did not appear on these until 1950. Before that, they were a little more unofficial, a little less together with the Soviets. I don't trust Weatherman. Anyway, some earlier guns even had markings on the grips. They could have FB in a triangle, or WB, or even BW, because I guess someone was dyslexic. But the Soviets said, no, you're going to do the star, or nothing. So they did nothing. So Polish grips are kind of unique in that after 1949 or so, they're just slab side. Same style of grips, but yeah. Now, what's also a little unique about Polish production, they use the earlier Soviet-style slide serrations, not the later fine style. Blued finish, which is, again, common. And they're known for a high degree of polish. Another final thing, notice this has the flat base to the magazine. This one has the lanyard loop, which is, again, was typically an early Russian feature. Either way is fine. It just kind of depends what it is. This one came with a lanyard loop. In the batch this came with, they all did. The newer batch didn't. But before we talk about safeties, let's put another mag through this and see if the hollow point cycling was a fluke or it's actually going to do it. Alright, let's try the Tokarev, and I'll try not to be distracted by the mag this time. And she held it open. I think we're good, yeah.
I'd hate to be a mole right now.
Yes. So yeah, color me impressed. So as to the added safeties, unfortunately, because of the 1968 Gun Control Act, they do have to have import marks, which this one does on the underside, which, while it's rather bold, they do specify a depth and font size. At least it's not visible when you look at it from the side. It is what it is, guys. I actually did own an unmarked and unsafetied Wz.33 once. It was kind of cool. It came over with a Diplomat. Wish I could have kept it, but needs must, guys. That's just what it is. This was an early style, though, where they had a small safety in this hole here, and they actually had a different left grip panel circled back here. But because of the way the 1968 Gun Control Act is worded, you can actually pull these out once they're here, and that's honestly a good thing, because the safeties are not trustworthy. That's the old style from imports, say, 20 years ago. This is the kind of current style that Century and others are using on Romanian guns in this gun. And this is installed over in Europe. That used to actually be a big deal. They said that if these were installed after the fact, it would void the gun's CNR status. That's been reversed in recent years, so these at least still keep that. But the first Romanians were not considered CNR because of this. I definitely do not trust this safety. I've had issues with them in the past. I'm sure they've gotten better, but I've had them where they would hang and your hammer would go forward. By design, the only safety this gun should have is the half cock. And when it's half cocked, it locks it up, and because their thought was, well, we've been using the Gaunt revolvers, why do we need more than that? Plus they were going for simple, cheap, what have you. Now there is another way they're doing safeties, and honestly when this batch came in, I was kind of hoping that's what we would get. They put a dingus on the trigger instead of drilling a hole in the frame. We've seen it with Yugoslavian and Chinese so far. It's perfectly legal. It's kind of a Glock style. And the nice thing there is you can pull the trigger out again because of the way the 1968 Gun Control Act was worded. It just has to be on there for importation. Same thing goes with like the thumb rest grips you see on, say, some Makarovs. In fact, oops, just gotta pick that up. Yeah, like some like these don't necessarily qualify until they have thumb rest grips because they're too small. Tokarev is big enough, but no safety. And since I just poked J-Ro during the camera, how about we let him shoot this gun and get his take. After all, he is a 1911 fan. And we'll let J-Ro give it a go.
Well, I'm not going to give it mega points for accuracy, but then again, we're shooting hollow points, so, you know, kind of is what it is.
It's interesting on the recoil that it seems like it should have more recoil than it actually does.
Yeah, and it's a really neck down cartridge. There's quite a lot of ass behind it, but no, I mean it ran okay. I would really want to kind of sit there and tinker with some slow shots for accuracy, but overall I wasn't super impressed. I mean, it runs, but that's about the most I'll say for it, really. You know, yeah. Within 15-20 yards, it's plenty accurate.
That's good, because the sights are basically not adjustable.
Right, and they're really low profile. I mean, this is a really old school sight picture.
Yeah, well, they're somewhat tall, but yeah, it's a very narrow.
They're tall, but the notch is small.
Yeah, real, and that was old school.
Yeah,
and there's really not room for
very old school sight picture.
There's not really room for a second hand on that grip. That is a single-handed grip.
I mean, if your grip mechanics are right, the length, you know, your front hand and your hand around the grip really shouldn't be all that. You know, it's not like you can get a lot of extra grip for the front hand, but it's a little snug. But no, yeah. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Gun work good.
Gun work good.
So there's that, and I get it. Hey, at least he did like it more than this. Still a fun gun, I don't care what he says. So yeah, that was surprise that first day. Threw it in. I ended up with that hollow point, I think it's PPU, during the coof. I somehow got a couple of 100 rounds of it, you know, maybe 4 or 5 boxes. And I've just been trying to shoot through it, but it doesn't work in a lot of my guns, so it's all I had that day. But I actually ran like a champ. Not that we were doing a whole lot, but I figured why not. Good basis to talk about the old guns. Of course, they disassemble pretty conventionally. I use a bullet tip, pull this clip out, push your slide stop out, and then it disassembles like a typical Browning, including the bushing. Got a recoil spring under the barrel. The grips are kind of cool. because this does not have any screws in it, there's actually levers up in here. You use the tip of your cleaning rod. Actually, I can do it by finger. Haha. Maybe. You have this pivoting thing here, and that's what holds it on. Kind of a neat little design, I think. And the other grip, once you have that off, it's got two holes, kind of a butterfly shape, and you just rotate and that comes off. And the trigger is all in one little pack, including part of the feed lips for the mag. It's got, if you notice, very little in the way of feed guides on top. That's actually part of the hammer pack here. It's a simple, but because of that, ingenious design, frankly. So yeah, day one, the surprise was it ran hollow points, which is about a 50-50 with these, I've noticed. I think the reason it did, the Polish guns are just so smooth. Good machining, very little resistance. Because what happens on other guns, the round kind of stuffs up as it tries to go into the chamber. In fact, take a look at what a Romanian TTC did. Let's see. No, so that's definitely a gun thing. Put the grip back on. So yeah, now we come to the second day. First day was Jero and I. Second day with Fox. Now, those who know that Fox is not really into surplus guns. Not his bag. He's more of a high-speed low drag guy. But I wanted to let him try out his first Tokarev. Again, let's see what he thinks. Fox is gonna try a Tokarev for the first time.
See if I can get any still. A little high. I need to shoot that again.
So, very first impressions?
You know, I think once you figure that trigger out, it's not bad. Very minimal recoil. I'm sure that has a little bit to do with the boat anchor that it is, but really, really cool experience. There was a lot of flinching involved on my part just because I'm used to, you know, single, double, triple action triggers, and I'm not sure what this is, but it's definitely an experience.
It's definitely a single action, but yeah, it's...
Oh, it's just got a long break, which... How old is this gun? I don't think that mattered, but yeah, this is awesome. I want to put a couple more rounds through it and see if I actually hit the steel. So, shooting really high and to the left.
Well, that makes sense for a communist gun. That surprised me. I'm kind of neat. As I was saying earlier, I like the recoil impulse. It's kind of a delayed system. It's springy in a good way. It's a powerful cartridge, so you think it would snap your wrist, kind of like a 357, but it doesn't. It's actually quite gentle. But I think it's just because it is a long throw. The lockup is very dramatic. A lot of movement to that barrel. I think it just spreads out what would be a snap into more of a gentle whoop, like that. I know, hard to explain, probably impossible. If you ever get a chance to shoot one, do so. Now, I would advise you, try to shoot actual pistol ammo, not necessarily the stuff loaded hot for submachine guns. You'll have a lot better experience shooting what these are meant for. Anywho, as far as production, like I said, by 1950, we're at peak communism with the Circle 11. And these two really represent the peak at the peak. 52, 53 seem to be the most common years. And production would continue through at least 1955. By which time the Radom factory had produced roughly 225,000. So not quite 250,000. a tiny number compared to what other nations built, but I mean, it's Poland. It's not a huge nation. They were building these for their own use, not for export. So that was more than enough for their military, their police. It let them retire kind of a hodgepodge of World War II and even pre-war guns. And as a sidearm, it's simple, it's dependable, easy to maintain. It's certainly powerful enough. Over penetration is definitely a concern because they didn't have hollow points. It was ball ammo. But yeah, this was the standard service gun for well over 2 decades. Until J-Ro's favorite gun came along. This is, of course, known as the P64, named for the year it was created, not the year it was adopted. This was not put into full production and service till at least 1967. And in theory was the Tokarev's replacement. But in reality, not exactly. This is a small gun. It's roughly PPK sized. And of course, 9x18 Makarov is a good defensive round, but it doesn't have the range, the flat shooting trajectory like a Tokarev. So in reality, what would happen, guys in the field, lower ranking officers, guys who actually might seek frontline combat, typically had Tokarevs. Of course, guys who just didn't get the newest and greatest also did. Higher ranking officers and increasingly police, security would have these, which makes sense. And of course, as we've talked about in previous videos, the reason for the wonderful trigger is the third option, the PM63 rack, the PDW machine pistol, which was carried again by kind of vehicle crews, tank drivers, maybe some airborne. So that was another option. So those really all served together in Poland even after the 60s. And up until the P83 WANAD, but that's kind of getting out of the realm here. But as Fox said, he actually does want to shoot this again. So, yeah, let's give him that chance. Well, my remaining experience wasn't good, so back to Fox with the Polish mag. I'll be honest, it surprised me. Afterwards, Fox actually asked me how much these cost. It's the first time I think I've ever heard him consider buying a Milsurp gun. Not saying he ultimately will, but he actually liked it. The only issue here is, of course, getting ammo. Then again, frankly, a couple of boxes will last you. This isn't the kind of gun you're going to want to go out and shoot mag after mag through. Even if you did, roughly 8 rounds per mag, and I usually download mine to 6 or 7. Even one box of 50 is still going to last you an afternoon. Yeah. But I'm glad he liked it, because it's a gun I've always kind of enjoyed too. And J-Ro is commenting that yes, indeed, the Makarov is very flat shooting and absolutely doesn't have 1 foot of drop for every 1 yard of travel.
I think that's the exact opposite of what I said, but you go on.
Again, kind of different purposes. This was more of a close-range defense gun. Simple blowback. And this is, by comparison, more complicated and more powerful and more of a field gun. Yeah, close range, this will definitely do something, but it's probably just going to over-penetrate and leave a 30 caliber hole in something. Whereas this will leave a 9¼ millimeter hole, something, so a little bit bigger. Again, different things.
You might be better off beating somebody with it. That's close range.
Both of these would be very beatable. I'll give them that. They're both, aside from the grips, you could literally throw either of these out of a vehicle and they're fine. That's the benefit of Soviet stuff. Now, one thing I should mention, this was called a Wz.33. The P64 has its own name. What I've noticed Poland would do, if they were directly copying a Russian design, they would just give it the Russian name. For example, their AKM was just called the KBK AKM or AK. But if they made their own derivation, for example, their grenade launcher, they called the KBKG WZ-1960. So if it was a Polish design or major variant, they would give it a Polish New Year name. But if it was just copying Russian, they'd kind of keep on with that. I thought that was kind of neat. The PPS 43 versus the 4352 out of Poland is another good example. Polish stuff is really neat. And I think these are really neat. And the Polish Tokarev has always been more expensive than, say, Romanian Yugo or commercial Chinese. But for the quality you get, not bad. Now, of course, Russian will always be more, and military Chinese will be more. They've gone up in price. I never really talk too much about price in these videos because it's not the purpose. But roughly speaking, right now, they're about 500-ish, just gun and cleaning rod. Even when I got into firearms, a Polish was around 300. So 20, 25 years ago. So they have gone up some, but, you know, not the craziest I've ever heard of. Plus, with less than 250,000 made, it will be one of those collector's items. My only real thing is, come on guys, give us the dingus safety. I don't like this style. I mean, removing this one left that little hole in the frame. I've had friends take a little piece of rod, weld it up, and cold blue over it. You can do that, but it's not horrible. But if you pull this out, it leaves an even larger hole, and it's actually more riveted in. This one was just a small lever with a tiny little C-clip on the other side, so very easy to install and uninstall. So yeah, that'd be my only thing if some importer can do that. But of course, they are kind of constrained with whatever sample they give the ATF. But what do you think? Do you own a Tokarev? If so, which do you like? I think they're all neat, even the Romanians. Maybe even especially the Romanians, because they used them for the longest of everyone. I like them all, but I have to say, as nice as the Polish is, as historic as the Russian is, same with the Chinese, I do kind of like the M57, the Yugoslavian, which is why, as a control, I brought it out that day too. Just for fun, let's try this hollow point out of the M57. Interesting. And now I let Fox try the M57.
Smooth as butter.
And the reason is, I knew that one would eat hollow points, because they've been through that gun before. But the Polish did fine. But no, the larger, longer grip on the Yugo is nice. And I thought Fox might appreciate the sighting of the M57 more. J-Ro and I just recently did a video on the M88, the 9mm compact version of the M57. So check that out if you're interested. Just really like talking about surplus around here, and since these, along with the fresh batch of Romanian TTCs have come in, just kind of wanted to bring attention to it in case you were in the market. Because the thing about imports, yeah, prices go up, but once the import cycle is over, they just go up more. So the best time to buy any kind of import is when they're coming in. I would say mags are inexpensive right now, so get some. Unfortunately, these just come with one mag. I do kind of miss the days of 2 mags in a holster, but oh well, get them while you can. There's a lot of leather holsters. Again, this one's for the Makarov. But actually, the one for the Tokarev's not too different looking, just slightly larger. But if you want a Russian or a military Chinese, well, the military Chinese are easier to get now thanks to that recent import of Type 54s. But before that, they were hard to get. And Russians, because of more legal reasons, are hard to get. And there's a drone buzzing us, so hi drone. It's been a very entertaining day over what's in the sky. I'm just waiting for a UFO. How about you? Anyway, with that, appreciate you hanging out today. If you could, check out some of our other military surplus videos or modern videos or whatever the hell you like. And if you could, like, share, subscribe. And if you'd really like to help us shoot more and maybe I can actually get some FMJ for the Tokarevs, check out the link to Patreon. This is Misha. Catch you very soon next time.